Hello everyone, this is Ponder on Weather. In this update, we've got multiple days of severe storms, including large hail, damaging winds, and tornadoes. Plus, we've got a hurricane in the Pacific that may cross over, bringing some of its remnants into the Gulf of Mexico. Welcome back, everyone. I appreciate each and every one of my followers out there. You can actually see this channel is up to 109,800 followers. I appreciate each and every one of you. I would love to reach 110,000 by the end of the month. So if you hadn't subscribed, it's free to do so. All you have to do is hit the subscribe button and notification bell to get all my daily updates to keep you ahead of the storm. Plus, it's also important to share this video with your friends and family. A lot of the risk areas that are going to be impacted over the next couple of days. So let's check it out this morning of the overall satellite picture. Man, we've got a lot happening right now because we've got some strong thunderstorms over portions of Iowa here, crossing over into portions of Minnesota this morning. A lot of lightning. They had some large hail back into Sioux Falls. In the overnight hours, had some golf ball size hail, and this whole area is going to be under the gun for the next 3 days with multiple systems that's going to be coming across with all three modes of severe weather. So here's the overall hazard map for the extended US map, and you can definitely see we got some cold air on the backside. So yes, those are, I know it's the end of May, guys, but we're still talking about snow in some areas, and they even have some winter weather advisories in portions of Idaho, getting into northern portions of Utah. And there's all the red flag warnings. It's just an ongoing issue, unfortunately, with just bone dry conditions and all the wildfires they're going to be dealing with out here into portions of Arizona, into New Mexico and West Texas. It's just been very windy. A lot of areas has been, one of the windiest Aprils on record. And then some of the areas have even seen a lot of, wind in May. So it's just been an extremely windy time. And those wind advisories just extend into portions of West Texas, into Oklahoma, as well as into Kansas here. But there's that severe thunderstorm watch. I think that it goes on to about 1 o'clock this afternoon for those large hail, damaging winds, and some of those tornadoes up here in portions of Minnesota. And just to the north of there, those are flood watches. So some very heavy rain going to be impacting those areas. But we've got yet another system that's going to be coming across later on this afternoon into the overnight hours, and those storms are really going to be packing a punch. In fact, the Storm Prediction Center has already highlighted an enhanced risk for severe storms in the major cities of Minneapolis and to St. Paul, getting into Sioux Falls again, unfortunately, as well as Sioux City, Iowa. These whole areas are going to be really under the gun. Could be seeing some damaging wind gusts of up to 75 miles an hour, guys. Yes, that is hurricane force wind gusts going to be on the table later on this afternoon into the overnight hours. And a few tornadoes are possible within this sector. But man, we could be looking at some more large hail extending a 2-inch plus large hail variety in this whole sector, this yellow as well as in the orange sector. So definitely be on high alert for all three modes of severe storms as we get deeper into the evening, overnight evening time frame. So let's take a look at some of the setup as this moves across. So here's kind of the radar, what it may look like around 9-10 o'clock this evening. So out ahead of it, this is what you always have to be concerned about, of all these little discrete little supercell thunderstorms popping out ahead of the storm. If those are able to form out ahead of the main squall line, those could be tornadic and dropping those large hail producers. So yes, those areas and portions of Minnesota here could be under the gun where they're getting hit right now, could be hit again in another 12 hours or so by the time we get into 9-10 o'clock time frame. So this whole area is definitely need to be on high alert for a lot of severe weather that's going to be impacting into the late evening hours. But tomorrow, man, these storms really start to amplify. This extremely powerful low-level jet will be coming across, and it really amplifies up to 103 knots. This thing is going to be screaming, goes full-blown negative tilt, and that's always susceptible to have the most concern for severe storms, the most lift in the atmosphere. And so those areas under Iowa into Minnesota again are going to be definitely under the gun of very damaging straight line winds, that tornadic activity, and just a line, a kind of a wall some of these discrete supercell thunderstorms that could be producing some large hail. So here's the breakdown for as you get into your Memorial Day for the winds. So this is going to be your wind gusts in this hatched risk area up here further north around the surface low, back into Fargo, back into St. Cloud here, into Moorhead. Those areas are going to be the most susceptible to seeing possibly 60 to even upwards to 85-mile-per-hour wind gusts going into your Monday time frame, and that just extends down, back builds down to us kind of a squall line that's going to be pinwheeling across. That those could be also packing a punch all the way into Wichita, going into Omaha, extending all the way north into Grand Forks. So this whole area is definitely going to be under the gun for very damaging winds into the daytime hours, going into the evening time frame. But there's your hail threat too. So you got a pretty large area of that hatched risk. Those areas are going to be under the gun of seeing about a 15% of you guys could see some of that golf ball size hail or potentially greater. And with these areas in red, you've got about a 30% chance of seeing some of those even larger hailstones. So this atmosphere is capable of producing potentially up to even baseball size hail. Is definitely not out of the question, especially further north you go around this surface low where all that lift is, and that is going to be your areas. Unfortunately, Sioux Falls again is going to be hit unfortunately again with some very large hail in those areas, but also it's going to be rotating as well. So we do have that 10% hatched risk. So whenever you see that, guys, that's unfortunately could be the atmosphere saying, hey, we got a lot of the ingredients in place to seeing some of those strong EF2 type tornadoes. So if you live within this yellow shaded area, you definitely need to be on high alert. Again, in Sioux Falls, into Aberdeen, into Watertown, those areas are going to be the most susceptible to not only seeing some of those, higher wind gusts, the larger hail, but unfortunately you have tornadic activity. And that pinwheels all the way down further into the south, going into central Kansas, going into southeastern Nebraska, heading into western portions of Iowa. That extends into into the Dakotas, goes all the way to Minnesota, and extending all the way really into the Canadian border. You need to be on high alert for a few tornadoes. So here's kind of the breakdown. So we've got some tropical moisture that Florida is going to be dealing with over the next couple of days, and we got a hurricane down here in the Pacific that we're going to be talking about. But up here, that's the trough that's going to be coming across, and there's snow. That's why they've got those sporadic winter weather advisories out here on the backside of this system, because there's definitely some colder air trailing behind it. But that's also going to be conducive why we could be seeing some of those hailstones as well. So here's the radar, what it could potentially look like about 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon on your Memorial Day, right around that surface low into the Dakotas, but pinwheeling across. Down here, we could be looking at rotating supercells and those very large hail producers coming across into the 4 o'clock time frame, but that just really explodes and expands and forms kind of a nasty squall line heading into Minnesota, Iowa, going through Nebraska. This would pinwheel down all the way and down into Kansas. So along this leading edge of that squall line, yeah, you could be seeing some isolated tornadoes, those damaging winds, and those large hail producing thunderstorms into the evening time frame. This is about 9-10 o'clock in the evening time frame on your Monday. So, but as we transfer into Tuesday, yeah, that to end the month of May, ahead of the cold front, we still got more storms. So we've got essentially 3 or 4 days in a row of enhanced storms that we're going to be dealing with. And by the time we get into Tuesday, there's the setup in the Texas Panhandle. Those could be pretty bumpy as you get into the afternoon time frame from Amarillo to Woodward, all the way up into Wichita, going into Kansas City. That would extend into Des Moines, into La Crosse, going all the way into Green Bay, Wisconsin. This whole area is going to be under the gun for seeing some of those damaging winds, large hail, and maybe an isolated tornado threat. Definitely not as significant of what you're potentially going to be seeing on Monday. But yeah, there's that tropical moisture down here into Florida that they're going to be dealing with some of those just tropical rains. And here's the overall setup for your Tuesday along that cold front. So there's some of your storm threat in the midsection of the country. There's your isolated just tropical moisture down here. We are going to be highlighting this hurricane, actually now, first hurricane of the season on the Pacific side, going to bring some of its remnants potentially crossing over into the Gulf of Mexico as well. And then as we transfer into that Wednesday timeframe to start June, there's the setup. So you got more instability further north. I mean, you look, you got about a slight risk for severe storms heading into Buffalo, heading into Rochester, back into Watertown. So those areas, you're going to be heating up ahead of this. We got plenty of heat, and that's going to fuel the atmosphere ahead of that cold front. So you're going to be under the gun to seeing some of those severe storms. And along this tail of the front, back into Amarillo again. So you got back-to-back days in Amarillo and to Woodward. Now this extends into basically Tulsa, potentially going into the Oklahoma City area, of seeing some of those larger hail producers and that damaging wind threat, going into the afternoon hours, into the early evening time frame. And here's your setup on the U.S. view for your Wednesday, June 1st. We've got all that kind of tropical moisture down here with this potentially low surface low off the southeast coast, but also that hurricane that's going to be pushing some of the remnants into the southern portions of the Gulf of Mexico, in portions of the Yucatan as well. And then you've got the snow. They got the snow on the backside. It's still going to be snowing in portions of Wyoming to start your June 1st, guys. So, but out ahead of it, there's your storm threat with the tailing storms. Some of those could be severe, but then just mainly rain heading up into portions of the Ohio Valley. But then some of those could turn severe as you head towards into further off into the Northeast. So here's the setup for Thursday. So as we extend the view and as we bring that cold front a little bit further south, I think it loses much of its severe threat. So these could be more or less onto the stronger side variety with some of those damaging winds. You can't roll out more of a marginal threat today, on this day, but definitely not as nearly as significant as what you're going to be seeing the next 3 days, as that cold front will be on the move, but also kind of slow down as well, because you're getting into June, guys. Cold fronts just don't push that far south in June. And that's basically exactly what's going to happen. So it may bring some stronger storms into the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but then that would probably retreat back further north as you get into Friday, as the cold front will just lose its luster and it's not able to push any further south. But what it's going to be able to do is, as these remnants try to push further north into the Northeast with this cold front sliding, that's going to keep any of this threat down here further south into the Gulf of Mexico, and it's going to push any remnants towards the Northeast, feeling the effects of this cold front from the north. But here's your overall wind swath over the next couple of days for your work week ahead. So you can definitely plan on where you're going to see some of your stronger wind gusts for all the truck drivers out there, the people that travel a lot for the good chunk of the country. Yes, it's going to be really impacted and pretty bumpy over the midsection of the country for the next couple of days with all those high winds that you're going to be dealing with. So definitely be on high alert as you get towards the middle of the country for those higher wind gusts for sure. So now let's turn our attention down here in the Pacific. And so, I mean, hurricane season started in the Pacific side in the middle of May. So this is your first named storm of the year, which was yesterday, Tropical Storm Agatha. But man, this exploded overnight, and now it's a bona fide hurricane, an 85-mile-per-hour hurricane, in fact, down here in the Pacific. And this thing is just crawling, and it's crawling, dumping some life-threatening flash flooding down here into portions of Central America. You can definitely see it's 85 miles an hour moving north. 2 miles an hour, guys. That's pretty basically just crawling, and that's going to be setting the stage for copious amounts of rain, even life-threatening rain down here into portions of Central America. We're talking upwards to possibly 20 inches of rain and mudslides down there. And this thing is not continuing to a further strengthening. I think this is almost potentially even going to be on the borderline of a major hurricane. Right now, the National Hurricane Center has it topping at about 110 miles an hour and about 36 hours time frame. So this environment down here is just very conducive for rapid development until it makes inland. But now let's cross over. So this is the overall next 5 days. So the National Hurricane Center went ahead and highlighted this area right here further north, because this is going to be bringing some of the remnants into the southern portions of the Gulf of Mexico, down here in the Caribbean, but especially around the Yucatan Peninsula. They do give it about a 30% chance of potentially gradual development over the next 5 days or so. So as we extend the view and look at some of the ensemble members from the latest European guidance, like I mentioned, we do have that cold front pushing further south. That won't be until Thursday. So it's going to be another 4 or 5 days or so before this makes inland and probably gets ripped apart over the mountains and just really sending copious amounts of rain. And then once it crosses over, we'll have to watch this and see if it's able to redevelop into the Gulf of Mexico or even potentially the Caribbean. If it does in fact do that, it would be a tropical storm Alex. But right now, you can see most, if not all, the ensemble members with this cold front pushes and keeps it further down into the southern portions of the Bay of Campeche, but also along the Yucatan Peninsula. So if you got plans, you got plans in the Yucatan, Cozumel, Playa del Carmen, Cancun, those areas, I would definitely be paying attention to this system, not just for the wind impact, but you got a lot of heavy rain that's going to be impacting this area, regardless if it develops or not. But most of these ensembles push it towards Florida, heading into the Bahamas. So you'd have to be watching for this system. And the same thing about the GFS ensembles as well. So most, if not all, push it along with the European ensembles, push this further northeast, potentially over the Yucatan, and heading into potentially South Florida, heading towards the Bahamas. And so this is the overall expansion over the next 7 to 8 days. Like I mentioned, it's going to be still over the Pacific for the next couple of days, but then it's going to be ripped apart over the mountain regions and then try to cross over into the southern portions of the Gulf of Mexico, or potentially get back into the Caribbean over the next couple of days. But overall, here's the rain threat, because this is going to be sending copious amounts of rain. So here's the latest European guidance showing for the next 7 days of all this area in purple. Yeah, that's 20+ inches of rain, guys, that could be impacting portions of Central America, but even higher amounts here along the coast. So yeah, definitely be on high alert. I know school's out, places people could do a lot of vacation over the summertime. So a lot of places, these tourist attractions are pretty popular down here in the Cancun and Cozumel and Playa del Carmen, back into the Caymans. So these areas are going to be under the gun with very heavy rain. And the latest GFS guidance over the next 7 days actually pushes it just a tad bit further south. So Florida is going to be on, have to be out to look out for this system. But it looks like the main push is going to be towards the Yucatan, towards the Cayman, and into potentially the Bahamas, as well as Turks and Caicos over the next 7 to 8 days or so. Hey, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely leave your comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel to catch the latest update where I protect you before and after the storm.